So let's take that black femininity and the misconceptions, and let's apply it to the actual interactions that young black girls have in the school system. One of the more popular cases, of course, I believe is South Carolina. Yeah,
Yeah.
South Carolina, the resource officer who picked up the student and really treated her, excuse me, in a manner that really should have broke the hearts of anyone, that
Right.
anyone, and whether you had a child or not, this should have broken your heart, but it didn't, right? And so before, I want to look at it from two perspectives. The first is, what do you feel goes into the minds of the school system, the teacher, the resource, all of the players? Is it a misconception of what this child is and this young woman is? Is it a repulsion at who they are and what they stand for, or is it just a collision of really bad factors that lead to an outburst like this and an event like this? What plays into an event like this playing out inside of a classroom?
Yeah, I think there are multiple things that were at play there. And, number one, I want to recognize that that was an absolutely egregious case
Hmm.
that did, sort of capture the attention of many more people than typically respond to the type of exclusion and differential treatment that Black girls are experiencing every day in schools. So I think in some ways, the anomalous nature of a police officer coming in, lifting a girl, slamming her body, throwing her across the room
Mm.
is what made everybody respond and say, what on earth is happening here? Right. And the fact that, the children who recorded it are still experiencing a threat of exclusionary discipline,
Mm.
okay, because of the structures and laws that are in place
Yeah.
in the community that that present or that see the interaction, the necessary interaction, and really, in some ways, intervention by recording this incident by the students as somehow being an affront and disruption of the schools. Okay, so affront to and disruption of the schools. So there's an important way in which we have to see just the mere fact that we all know about that case as a part of the problem
Right.
in some ways, because what is more common is that girls are experiencing being turned away from school because of how they present at school. So the clothes that they are wearing, they're turned away from school if they ask too many questions. In some cases,
Wow.
they are confronted and treated as if they are being disruptive to the classroom, or they are seen as somehow presenting an affront to authority when they're engaging in questioning, which is an expression of critical thinking. There are ways in which girls are fighting and having real conflict in ways that are deeply problematic in schools, but the response to them is they are inherently problematic, get them out
Right.
of here, as opposed to thinking through a continuum of responses to their behaviors and really seeing beneath the surface. One
Wow.
of the things that I often talk about, and even with the South Carolina case, is anyone who is looking at the physical presentation of the girl in the video and looking at many other videos that I have seen and other instances that I have seen, that there are ways in which children express exposure to trauma and victimization that are often ignored when that person expressing it is a Black girl.
Mm.
And there has been this historical way in which adults don't see the pain of Black girls and instead read them as them having an attitude or
Mm.
just being problematic. And without understanding that in many ways and spaces, Black girls are navigating structures of oppression that have not been deeply interrogated by our society, let alone by our schools, which I frame as structures of dominance in this conversation, meaning they can either act to actively disrupt the status quo and the structures of oppression, or they can work to reinforce those norms in very real ways. And so when you have this increasingly punitive climate in schools where there are officers who are there to engage in surveillance activities, there are metal detectors that are policing students. There are policies and security cameras in place, and other ways in which children are told that there are adults who are coming in to implement safety, and that is how they construct safety. Then we have a deep imbalance of power and a lack of investment on the part of children to really be active players in the co-construction of their own safety. So in my conversations with girls, in the both those that made it into the book and those that didn't make it into the book, girls will often talk about how they need other things besides adults with guns to make them safe. They need other things besides a dean of student behavior, to come in and make them safe. That they need to really have active, caring adults in their life who can help them work through the root causes of these conflicts, if you will, and help to see them as whole people, as they are trying to navigate, again, what has become a hyper punitive learning environment for too many of our children.